morning, everybody. Welcome to our Tango Nonprofit Education Series. As many of you know, we run these pretty much weekly. It's our commitment to share trends and information with the nonprofit sector. So we're thrilled to be providing you with what I think is some really good information today. So we're going to be talking about the TANGO Group Retirement Plan Solution. There's been some really interesting market evolution and developments as it relates to the Secure Act, which is putting this concept front and center. And as many of you know, we are always keeping our eyes out and ear to the ground for opportunities that help nonprofits. That's the essence of Tango. And today we're going to talk about that very concept. So how we can provide lower cost, more impactful, better retirement plan solutions for nonprofits. And this is new. It's not just a repackaging of an old concept. It's something that has emerged as a result of some legislative changes. And we follow that very closely, and where there's opportunities to improve things on behalf of the sector, that's what we're trying to do. So thanks again for joining us. Again, my name is Roland Schuster, Managing Director of NFP. I'm President and Founder of Tango. With us today, speaking will be Matt Coles, one of our senior advisors specializing in the retirement plan space. Matt, thanks for carving out some time to educate our members. And we have Pete D'Angelo. He's the National Director for Nonprofit Markets with one of our partner firms, Pentegra. So Pete, thanks again for making the time to enlighten our audience. Next slide, Rob, please. Or whoever's driving.
That's Matt. There you go.
Thanks, Matt. So as many of you guys know who are Tango members, I built this organization to really help nonprofits thrive. And it's really become a partnership between the for-profit world and the nonprofit world for the mutual benefits of both. And what we're at the end of the day trying to do is drive innovation, lower costs for you, deliver mission advancement, build capacity, provide business-oriented education to the sector. And we continue to grow. We're now just shy of 1,500 nonprofit members, representing it's at least 160,000 employees that work in the nonprofit sector. We have 32 partner firms that provide the funding for Tango's existence. So our socially conscious partners really make Tango happen. Companies like NFP, who we're part of, is a big fiscal sponsor here and provide the fuel to deliver on our mission. We are highly committed to these educational events. Last year we did 51 hosted events. We're on track to at least do that. And I want to make sure everybody's tuned into the Tango Rising Star Scholarship Awards. So May 12th is going to be Tango Night at the Hartford Yard Goat Stadium. We're taking out the entire stadium. We're going to be giving out about 900 tickets to nonprofits. It coincides with The Office, the TV show The Office. So we're going to have some celebrities from the TV show there, and we're going to be awarding our scholarship grants to those deserving folks, those rising stars in the sector. So if you have a calendar in front of you, please pencil it in. May 12th, Tango Night at the Yard Goat Stadium. More to come. You'll be invited, and certainly we hope to see you there. It should be a really fun event. Next slide, please. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is really create change, positive change in three areas. One is through professional development and collaboration. Today's a perfect example of that, where we're providing education in an area that we are very, very good at in the financial services, insurance, investment arena. Today's topic is about improving your retirement plan, and it's designed to help make you better. And all of our educational events are really crafted around that whole concept. Preferred services from nonprofit specialists is another area. So we've blended our knowledge, our years of experience, and a market opportunity, and the clout we have in the market with 160,000 people that work in the sector. We're able to do things that, quite frankly, other folks can't, just because of the scale we've built in the sector. Today is another example of that. We're taking the size of Tango and really driving cost savings for you in the retirement plan space. And goodwill mission support is how we all just align with Tango and supporting the sector, whether it's through our volunteer work, our foundation, our DEI initiative, whatever it might be. Tango is here to support your mission. So, Matt, yeah, thank you. I want to give a shout out to our Tango Partner Network. These are the folks, again, that make it happen. Today's is really being sponsored by NFP, who is a key founding sponsor. The Schuster Group, who founded Tango, was acquired by NFP a little over a year ago, and provides the majority of the funding and guidance. But we have a lot of other great partners who have also contributed to the overhead and the spirit of Tango. And I want to thank all of you guys for making this happen. Just real quick on NFP. NFP is not a household word, but it unless you're in the industry, but it's a powerhouse of resources ranging from employee benefits, HR services, property casualty, executive benefits, retirement, wealth management. In fact, we're one of the largest advisory firms in the country. In my opinion, I think the most innovative. And we are highly, highly committed to not only supporting our clients, but really carving out a niche and serving the nonprofit space. So you're going to see more and more of NFP emerging as we grow our footprint here. Very excited to be part of this organization. After a year and 3 months being an NFP employee, it's been a very, very impressive run. So we're able to deliver significant depth in our resources to help all you guys manage your nonprofit. So without any further ado, I am going to turn this over to my associate, Matt, who really spearheads our retirement practice and has spent a great deal of time on this concept, helping it come to life. And Matt, you want to take it away and enlighten everyone as to what we've got cooking here?
You bet. Thanks, Roland, and thank you everybody for your time. I do want to encourage you to ask questions. You can use the chat. You can certainly just stop us and ask questions as we go. We'll have some time at the end as well, but want to make this as interactive as possible. So don't hesitate to stop us and ask those questions as we go. But as Roland mentioned, I am part of NFP. I'm a senior advisor on the team. I've been working with Roland for, we're going on our 10th year. And I have 22 years of experience in the industry. And we've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of changes in those last 22 years, but certainly in the last, since the Secure Act was passed in 2019, which was somewhat overshadowed by the coronavirus, the pandemic, and eventually when the CARES Act was passed shortly after that, it seemed to kind of draw everyone's attention there and away from the Secure Act. But the Secure Act had some real important changes. It was one of the largest sweeping changes we've seen in quite some time. But one of the key parts of it was the part about aggregation for employers to be able to, unrelated employers to be able to band together and aggregate their retirement plan assets together to, of course, gain better scale, better pricing through more assets, greater services, and also the outsourcing of the administrative and fiduciary responsibilities. And all of that leads, of course, to better participant outcomes. And what I've found in my years working with plan sponsors is certainly on the smaller end of the market, say from startup plans up to about, say, 10 million, it is challenging for sponsors to find a competitive solution for their retirement plan, because quite simply, a $1 million plan is going to be priced very differently and have different investment costs than a 20 million or a $30 million plan. So, and it just has to do with the amount of assets and the levers that those assets bring to that particular plan sponsor. So with the Secure Act, with this push by the government to bring competitive retirement solutions to all Americans, this was a big part of that. And so now we have the opportunity, again, to offer our group plan solution. So unrelated TANGO members can join and take advantage of that scale, the better services, more outsourcing, and again, better participant outcomes. So it's really the goal that Ron and I had in putting this together and bringing it to you today was to really drive those points home. And really at the end, you see less risk, less cost, less work, and better outcomes. That's really what the goal was. So as we go through this, we're going to hit on some of those points, but I wanted to first start off by just some of the terms that we're going to talk about and just so everybody understands what they mean, because we throw them around with each other. But sometimes when we say a 321 or a 338 or 316, it doesn't resonate with you. So I wanted to make sure you guys all understood what those terms meant. But when you sponsor a retirement plan, one of the things we would, I think all of us at NFP, and of course Pete would agree, is you want to hire professionals. You're in a position when you are a plan sponsor to be an expert. That's basically what the Department of Labor expects you to be. And of course, you're probably not comfortable with making investment decisions potentially for your participants, and you don't know all of the rules and regs that pertain to your plan. So you hire professionals to help you with those tasks, but also in that process, you should be looking at hiring fiduciaries to take some of that responsibility and liability away from you as well. That would be, I think, a goal of all plan sponsors. So, and I'll let Pete talk about the 316 administrator fiduciary function, but on the investment side, you typically have two different types of investment advisors. A 321, where that advisor is giving advice. They do not have discretion though. So in that case, if you're working with a 321 advisor, they're providing you advice, but when that decision is made, you as the plan sponsor, typically a committee, is going to make that decision. The advisor is not. So you're still involved, although you're shifting some of that responsibility away to that 321 advisor, because they're acting in a co-fiduciary capacity. You still are involved in that decision-making process. Then we go to a 338, and that turns now into investment management. So now the 338 advisor has discretion. So now you are removed completely from that decision-making process. They're not only guiding you through the process, but they're making that decision when the fund is added to the plan, or if a fund manager needs to be replaced, they're taking that action for you. So it is a much deeper fiduciary role, more responsibility and liability is shifted to the advisor, and of course, less fiduciary risk and responsibility for you. So in this framework, we're going to talk about you are tapping into a 338 investment management process with the group plan solution. So then we have a 316 administrator fiduciary. And again, I want to turn it over to Pete, because this is his role. This is what Pentegra does. And I think it'd be probably in all of our best interest to have Pete explain this, as he knows it really well. So,
yeah. Thank you, Matt. And before I jump into the technical, I just want to take a moment and really indicate again what a great moment this is for Pentegra. We've been working or trying to work with the Schuster Group and Tango for, 5 or 6 years. But as Matt mentioned, and Roland mentioned this, there wasn't a good fit in terms of how you could do it, in terms of taking, unrelated employers and bringing them together under a group plan. So when Secure came out, and subsequently Secure 2.0 allowed for these types of arrangements, it was a perfect opportunity for Pentegra and Schuster and the Schuster Group and Tango to come together and work and really provide an innovative retirement plan benefit. So just on a personal note, I'm very excited to get this endeavor going and excited to talk about it. So I'm glad you guys could be the first group that we get to talk to about it. But Matt, thank you again about the fiduciary administrator role. Give you a moment about who I am. Again, Pete DeAngelo. My title at Pentegra is National Director of Non-for-Profit Markets, right? So you can see how this concept is near and dear to my heart, being able to provide better plans to non-for-profits across the country. And the role that we would play, as Matt mentioned, in this group retirement plan is we would become the fiduciary plan administrator. And really what that means, if you think of it, Matt was talking about some of the risks inherent to sponsoring a retirement plan, a 401k plan. People inherently think of risk as fiduciary investment risk, right? The risk of making poor investment choices, the risk of losing money. And that's all true and real. And that you can outsource that risk through the 338 mechanism, as mentioned. But a good part of the risk that you have in a 401k plan is administering the plan compliantly, right? In compliance with DOL, in compliance with ERISA, in compliance with your own plan document. And all that risk exists because the traditional setup is that the plan sponsor is also the plan administrator. Well, just like you outsource that investment risk through the 338, through the 316 arrangement, you make a fiduciary an appointment to appoint Pantegra as the plan administrator. So you're not responsible for that work. You're not responsible for that risk if you get it wrong. It's outsourced to a plan administrator. And that, in this case, it's Pantegra. So it's really a complete outsourcing of risk, not only on the investment side, but also on the admin side.
Thanks, Pete.
You're welcome.
So again, at the end of the day, all of this, it means that you're shifting that responsibility and liability off of your plate, which I think most plan sponsors appreciate. And as we get into this, we're going to touch on that a little bit more. But I think that's, again, a really important part of the presentation and understanding how that shifts away from you. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my advancing the screen. There we go. So one of the other things that I wanted to touch on, and Pete did a little bit there with his intro, but there are kind of burdens that are put upon you as part of the plan administration. So there's a lot of tasks that are on your plate that you are responsible for. And again, as Pete mentioned, not only do you have to satisfy these tasks, but you have to make sure you're doing it in accordance with your plan document. And sometimes, there's things that can go off the tracks. For example, you're not calculating contributions based on the right compensation definition, or folks that were eligible were not allowed in the plan based on that eligibility, or maybe vesting. So all of these things that you need to administer, there are some complexities involved in it. But I think it's just the amount of things. And one of the things we've seen as far as the evolution of retirement plans is there's been more and more put on the plan administrator's plate. So for example, and you guys, if you have a plan, you're well aware of the participant fee disclosure, which has to be given once a year if you make any changes to funds or fee changes, and when participants become eligible. And that's something that, and there's a lot of more notices than that have to go out on a yearly basis, like your summary annual report. If you have a QDIA or a qualified default investment option, you have to notify participants annually of that. If you have a safe harbor plan, there's additional notices there. So all of those responsibilities and mailings have to go out each year, and you as the plan administrator are responsible for that. And the Department of Labor will check to make sure you are delivering those timely, and you want to make sure you're adhering to that. So again, being able to shift not only the fiduciary, but also just the tasks that you're responsible for to Pantegra in this group plan solution, I think is a huge benefit, because we also know that as nonprofits, you don't have a huge HR payroll staff behind you, right? You typically are a one-man person or one-man shop doing all those tasks yourself. So this is a great way to free you up to do probably more important things like recruiting, retention efforts, whatever it may be, and not spending a lot of time on your retirement plan. So this is really, again, the benefit of the group plan solution is the fiduciary shift, but also the fact that a lot of these tasks will be off your plate and now part of what Pantegra does for you. So we've already kind of mentioned some of the roles here, but just to formalize everything for you, so you know who's part of this. Of course, NFP, myself and my team would be the 338 plan advisor. And as I mentioned, that's where we would manage the investments and make decisions on behalf of the plan for you. So that would be completely off of your plate, as well as the participant education. So we will have folks that will be able to engage with your participants, both from a education and investment guidance perspective, but also to provide financial wellness as well, which is a huge push right now in our industry to provide more holistic financial wellness. And again, as a smaller plan, without this aggregation and scale, you may not have access to those types of tools, but within this group plan solution, we're able to bring that to whether it be a startup or any size plan that joins. You'll have that full scope financial wellness that you can bring to your participants. On the left-hand side, we didn't mention the record keeper is Transamerica. So when we started the process of putting the group plan solution together, we of course wanted to team up with quality, low-cost providers, but also providers that had experience in the pooled plan arrangements. And Transamerica is one of those providers. They have over 20 years. They put their first, I think it was a multiple employer plan, or maybe no, pooled employer plan arrangement back in 2001. So that was the first one that they created. But they've been doing this for 20 years. They have over 290 plan sponsors, which is basically 290 of these types of aggregated plans. And I believe it's over, what was the number of participants? Yeah, with over 150,000 participating employers. So they've got a huge scale and huge experience here, but also the other thing is their record keeping system is unique in that it allows us to aggregate and to run the aggregated plan efficiently, but also the individual participating employers don't lose their identity. You still feel like you're an individual plan within the record keeping system. And what I mean by that is you can have your own plan provisions. It's very flexible. So you can, if you want your eligibility to be a certain way and vesting and those sorts of things, you can customize your plan just like you would as a single employer plan. But getting again, on the record keeping system that allows us to aggregate you together to provide the scale and services that we're talking about. So Transamerica was chosen based on their experience in these pooled employer arrangements. So again, as we talked about, outsourcing the 338, we would take on that full fiduciary role. We would create the investment structure. We would provide you with the investment policy statement, which essentially just outlines how we select, how we review, how we benchmark funds, and then of course, when those funds are replaced, why they're being replaced. So it's a complete outsourcing again of that role, going beyond what a 316 advisor could do with advice, but also providing that management with the 338 to be able to manage the process without your involvement. So that's again the less risk on the investment side. And again, we find most sponsors when we have our meetings, even in a 321 role, they mainly are looking for us to provide them the answers, right? So the 338 is really just taking that process off their plate. So I think it's a great enhancement to that investment advisory role, having that 338 designation. And then Pete, if you want, I know you talked a little bit about this, but I think it's, as far as what you guys do, even going as far as signing off on the 5,500, maybe spend some time here as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And let me give you a little bit, the audience a little bit more about Pantegra as well. Yeah. So we were founded in 1943, just a little bit of history here, when the Federal Home Loan Bank needed to bring together their system banks. At that point was 12 different banks regionally across the country to build a retirement plan. Pantegra was founded when we built a retirement plan for the Federal Home Loan Bank. The reason that's important is that it's really one of the country's first group plans. It's the first time really different employers that weren't connected or were different came together to create, at that point, we called them multiple employer plan. So really by an accident of history, PanTegra was created as a multiple employer plan. So this whole idea of coming together to get big and to outsource risk and share benefits is really in our DNA. We've been doing it as long as we've been in existence. And we've been acting in the capacity of 316 fiduciary plan administrator. As Matt said, we like to throw around, jargon in those terms, but the 316 administrator came around when ERISA came around in 1974. And we've been acting in this 316 outsourced plan administrator capacity since 1974. So that's an idea of our history, but in terms of our scope, we're serving over 10,000 retirement plans in this capacity today. And we've received the Center for Fiduciary Excellence certification for a fiduciary plan administrator, which indicates we have process, procedures, people, systems in place to act in this fiduciary admin capacity. And then locations were in White Plains, New York, Shelton, Connecticut, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Columbus, Ohio as well. So that gives you an idea of the support system you have that was built into this TANGO Group plan. But a little bit more on the less work. So Matt spoke about the less risk. Really, the less work comes down to is that you're no longer the plan administrator, period. PanTegra is the plan administrator. So Matt alluded to those chores. We stopped counting around 50 chores that actually falls to the plan administrator. So those all come off your plate, and when we work with these smaller not-for-profits, we want to make sure they're compliant first as well. So some of the issues that we find are maybe missing testing, or plan documents are out of date, or perhaps you're not following the administration as your document indicates. So we'll make sure any fixes are done first, and then we'll go forward and make sure that your plans are operating compliantly going forward. Sending and signing the 5,500s, overseeing transactions to make sure they're done compliantly, working with you to complete the testing. So not only that work comes off your desk, allowing you to really focus on your mission specific goal. No one joined a not-for-profit to run a 401k plan, right? So we know that, so we can step into that role for you. But not only you're outsourcing that work, but that anxiety of maybe if you did it correctly or not. And then the risk, if potentially you did do it correctly, it no longer falls on your institution to fix it. We'll fix that for you because we are the plan administrator, and really pay any fees, fines, or penalties if required. Not our goal to do so because we want to do it right the first time. But that's an idea of outsourcing that work when you join the group plan.
Great. Thanks, Pete.
You're welcome.
And not to overlook one of the most important things, which is the participant education guidance and creating better outcomes for your plan participants. Because again, we know that with a smaller retirement plan, you may not have the same level of support, on-site education, individual meetings, things of that nature, that your current provider or service provider will deliver to you with the group plan solution. And again, with the scale that we're able to bring to the table, we're able to kind of address that unequal level of on-site education. And as I mentioned, you are tapping into a professional investment advisor that your participants can engage with. And that can be, again, basic education on why should I join my plan and what should I do when I join, to full financial planning if that individual needs that type of help. And then beyond that, providing that wellness platform, which we think is key because not every participant is struggling with retirement. And in fact, some might be struggling with figuring out how to put together a short-term savings plan, or maybe a college savings plan for their child, or maybe getting ready to retire. What do I do now? So kind of, looking at that bigger picture and providing those services in a more holistic format. And that's what this plan solution will do. So again,
Matt, there's actually a question in the chat group, room. How are audits handled? from Pat Ladner.
Pete, you want to take that one?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. So obviously we understand 401k plans with more than 100 eligible participants are subject to an audit as well as a 5,500. So think of it again that now you're no longer the plan administrator. Pentegra is the plan administrator. So that interface with your auditor first comes through our office, and they're going to ask us for the information, right, to help complete that audit. And we may have to go to the non-for-profit and say, okay, we need some assistance here from you to answer your auditor's questions. But the idea is that we also want to take that work off your desk and that time off your desk, have your auditor work with us to get the data we need or they need to complete that audit. So we really try to take it off of your desk and put it onto our desk so we could interface with your auditors for you.
And Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do file you sign and file the 5,500 on their behalf as well?
100%.
Okay, great. Oh, looks like we got another one. What about DOL audits, Pete,
Okay,
if that
yes.
comes about?
Yeah, right. Okay, so not only are we the named administrator, we're the named fiduciary responsible for the compliance of the 401k. So that means DOL audit, the first call comes to us, right? And then we'll, again, we'll have to circle back with an individual institution and say, okay, this is what they're looking for, but we are certainly that front line first call for the DOL if an audit occurs. So again, that less work, but also the less risk. And the idea is you join a group plan, you're less likely to become audited, right? Because you have hired professionals to manage your plan for you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. And I think this probably goes without saying, but the whole purpose of this was also a big goal of this group plan solution is to drive costs down. Again, that's where we find where plan sponsors in the smaller end of the market really struggle to find competitive solutions for their plans, especially if they're maybe starting up a plan initially, or maybe started a plan more recently and the assets are just starting to kind of grow and build up. But this is where, again, as we look at this group plan solution today and then in the future, as more participating employers join the plan, that's going to allow us to provide more competitive pricing as well as more services to the individual plan sponsors. So this is, again, when you put your fiduciary professionals together, you're going to find, again, more efficiencies. And the other thing too, along with this, is the investment platform that we've created would be the same investment platform that we would have for $100 million plus plan. So it is an institutional investment platform with the lowest cost share class for each investment. We've also brought into the fold, and this might be a new term for some of you, collective investment trusts. CITs are certainly becoming more and more of a talking point with plan sponsors and advisors, and being part of NFP, we actually have a suite of CITs that we can bring to any size plan sponsor. Historically, collective investment trusts, and even today, typically you have to have a minimum investment, and these minimum investments can be really large. Sometimes the whole size of the plan, $1 million investment to be able to tap into a collective investment trust, where we have now, again, these CITs that are available for all plan sizes. And in a nutshell, a CIT is just a cheaper version of a mutual fund. It's essentially what it is. So that's another benefit of having this group plan solution, where regardless of your plan size, you're getting the lowest cost investments in your plan. And then we talked about, again, record keeping, the cost savings there, having your plans pooled together. But I think it's important to, again, just mention that you don't lose your identity. You can still have your own plan provisions, whatever makes sense for your organization, but take advantage of being part of this pooled arrangement. Okay. So I guess, in closing, I want to make sure that we also leave some time for questions, but I think this is a great opportunity, as Roland mentioned, and initially I've been working on this for about a year now, and we're excited to launch this in April. We think we've got a great collection of professionals with Pentegra, Transamerica, and NFP, and we think with the Tango network, we think this is a great opportunity to, again, have the Tango members that want to have a retirement plan for their employees that's going to be low cost, greater services, get some of that fiduciary risk off your plate, shift the administrative work off your plate, and of course have the best platform for your participants to find retirement success, to have that holistic wellness wrapped around it, but also have a plan that's going to get them to, their retirement goals. That's really a big part of this as well. So if there is any questions, please let us know, and we'd certainly like to address that at this point. Otherwise, we can break, and you can always follow up with myself or Roland. I will definitely reach out to everybody that joined today to make sure you have my contact information. But we definitely would like to, talk to you about your individual situation and see if the group plan solution might be a good fit for you.
Hey, Matt, and Pete, nice job today. Thank you. Just real quick, maybe we could talk about sort of, if somebody is curious about this, we can do a comparative analysis. There's no obligation, right? There's just, and we will go through the sort of stacking of the key points of a retirement plan and compare those features and costs and structure so that you and an inquiry can really make an informed decision. Do you just want to talk about that process a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd be happy to do a comparison if you are currently sponsoring a plan and you want to see how that plan benchmarks to whether it be this group plan solution or other options for your plan. We'd be happy to do that. I do think you have to consider, though, when we do the comparison, the level of services you are getting in the group plan solution versus where you might be today. So having a 338 fiduciary investment advisor that's, again, taking that investment process off your plate, or the 316 administrator fiduciary that is assuming the responsibility of the administration for your plan, acting as the actual plan sponsor, plan fiduciary. So I think, Ron, it's definitely a comparison we can do, but I would want to make sure we highlight the added or greater services that you would get here versus potentially in a single employer plan arrangement.
Yeah, it's a great point, Matt. Great point. I think we have another question.
Yeah. So the one, it's if we were to change, what is the process like? So you are moving, if you have a plan from one record keeper arrangement to another. So there are steps involved in that process, and typically it can take upwards to 60, 90 days, but we have made the onboarding process into the group plan solution much more streamlined than any other transition you would engage in. So that is one of the benefits too of this group plan solution, is the onboarding process is the amount of paperwork and the amount of steps you have to go through is certainly minimized. But I would want to mention or point out that what Pete said earlier, there is a due diligence effort up front. We want to look at your plan, make sure everything is operating the way it should before you come in, kind of fix if there is any issues before you come into the plan. Because again, they're assuming that role as a 360, and they have to make sure everything is clean before they do that. So, but I think that's a good thing, because you want to make sure you identify any issues anyways as a sponsor and take care of them as soon as possible. But yeah, definitely a much more efficient, streamlined process to onboard.
And Matt, I'll add a little color to that last statement. Often, if we even find an issue and we're taking steps to remedy it, we can still move ahead with the transition, like long as we know what's there and what we're doing to fix it. So we could do those on a parallel track.
Yeah. And I guess just taking a step back too, Raw, you had mentioned, could we do a benchmarking? I think just, anybody on the call that is sponsoring a plan, you should be doing that benchmarking on a regular basis. So if you haven't looked at your plan for a while, haven't put it out to market or benchmarked your costs and services, investment opportunities against the market, I would highly recommend that you do that, whether it's with the GPS or not. It's something that all fiduciaries should be doing on a regular basis. So.
Good point.
Doesn't look like we have any more questions in the chat, but thank you for those that were asking those really great questions. Again, as I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me if you are interested in learning more about the program. And if you are interested in a proposal, we can certainly get you a proposal with the cost structure of the program. And yeah, and certainly would like any questions, anything that you have as a follow-up, please reach out.
And I'll just close by saying thanks again, Matt, Pete, appreciate your efforts on this. A lot of work has gone into this. You guys know that. It's great to finally be here at launch date. So, that's the power of Tango, quite frankly. Scale matters. And when it's deployed effectively, we can really move the needle. And I think this is a perfect example. So if you found this of interest and want to take a further look, we're here for you. And we will keep you posted with the growth of our program here. And thanks everyone for attending. Have a great day. And thanks for being a part of Tango. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.